Hey everybody, it's Mr. P again, coming to you with your Math 10 e-learning lesson for Wednesday, April 29th. Remember in our segment from yesterday, we introduced our circle unit. We looked at some terms related to circles like radius, diameter, chord, and looked at how those all those segments in a circle are related. So we're going to move forward today with calculating what we call the circumference of a circle. Okay, so circumference, just think of that as the total distance around the circle. So if I were to start at this point and I would travel all the way around the circle and end up back at the same point I started with, that would be the circumference. That distance I travel would be the circumference of the circle. How do we calculate the circumference? Okay, so one version of the formula would be C equals 2 times pi times r. We'll talk about what pi is in just a moment. R here represents our radius. Remember, radius was half the distance across the circle through the center. Okay, where one endpoint was on the center, one endpoint was on the circle. That's the radius, that's that distance. Or an alternate version of that formula is C equals pi times d. So d is our diameter. And remember, diameter is 2 times what the radius is. So these two formulas are actually equivalent, right? 2 times r is equivalent to d. Okay, so these are actually the same formula, just in a different, in a slightly different, presented in a slightly different way. Okay, so these are equivalent. And it just depends on if you're given the diameter or the radius as to which one you will use for a particular problem. Okay, so again, diameter is 2 times the radius. Of course, we can also think of the radius as the diameter over 2, or half the diameter. So pi, okay, pi, Greek letter, actually represents an irrational number. So pi is like 3.14159. 2, 6, 5, 3, 8, and it goes on forever. However, for our calculations, we are just going to use 3.14 for pi, okay? So whenever we see pi, we're going to just plug in 3.14. That's it. So let's go ahead and do a couple examples here. So I'm going to be finding the circumference based on the information I'm given in the diagram of the circle. So here's a circle. This represents the center point of the circle, and I have a distance here of 4 inches. This is 4 inches. What does this distance represent? Okay, and then you should be telling me that this represents the radius, right? That's halfway across the circle, the distance halfway across through the center point. So the radius, r, equals 4 inches. Which formula should we use? Okay, C equals 2 pi r has the radius in it. So circumference equals 2 pi r. So circumference equals 2 times 3.14 times the radius of 4, multiply all three numbers together, and you get 25.12 inches. Okay, so again, when we do circumference, we're looking at just regular units like inches, feet, yards, meters. It's not area, it's just a distance, right? Circumference is just the distance around the circle, total distance we travel. So it's not square units, it's just inches, feet, yards. So here, circumference would be 25.12 inches. And again, when you do your assignment on Alex for this, part of the answer will be that you're correctly identifying the unit. So just inches, not inches squared. Also, do not round. So don't round down to 25, keep it as 25.12. So don't round. Okay, so let's try another one. So let's say you have got a circle, and you have here's the center point, and you have a distance of 5 yards. Again, I'm identifying this as the center point. Okay, and I say find the circumference. 5 yards represents what? Just like over here, we have a radius represented, right? This is the center, this is the edge of the circle, that distance there, half the way across the circle, that is the radius. Okay, so the radius is equal to 5 yards. Once again, we're going to use c equals 2 pi r. So c equals 2 times pi, remember that's 3.14, times the radius, that's 5. Multiply those numbers together. So circumference is going to equal 31.4 yards. Remember, just plain old yards. And once again, do not round. Okay, 31.4, keep it as that. Don't round to 31. Okay, so remember, circumference either 2 pi r or pi times d. So let's look at a couple more examples here. All right, so let's say I have a circle, and here's the center point, and I'm going to say that this distance here is 10 meters. Okay, so this entire distance here. So you would tell me what the 10 meters represents what distance? Is that a radius or is that a diameter? Well, here's the center point, and the segment goes all the way across the circle, right? Both endpoints are on the circle. That would be a diameter. So diameter equals 10 meters. What version of the formula should we use? Okay, remember, we have that version that says circumference is equal to pi times d, pi times diameter. So circumference equals 3.14 times our diameter of 10. Okay, so for this one I get a circumference of 31.4 meters. Okay, just plain old meters, not meters squared. All right, so last one here. Again, I'm telling you here, this is the center point of the circle. And let's say that this distance here is 18 centimeters. Okay, so once again, okay, you should be telling me that 18 centimeters represents a diameter, right? Because it's this entire distance across the circle through the center. The diameter has 2 endpoints on the circle, passes through the center of the circle. So diameter equals 18 centimeters, which means I'm still going to use that same formula as I used for the last example. Circumference equals pi times diameter, pi times d. So 3.14 times 18. Okay, so you end up with circumference equals 56.2 or 56.52 centimeters. Again, do not round. Okay, keep it at 56.52, and centimeters would be the correct unit. So that's some few examples on how to calculate circumference. Again, your assignment for 429 is also on Alex for the e-learning. Tomorrow's e-learning will actually focus on using the circumference formula to work backwards to find radius and diameter. Okay, so until then, we'll see you next time.